Do you feel like we had too much repetition in the last code we wrote, especially when rendering the image slider? Today, we will fix that using loops and clean up our code. We'll also try to understand how loops work and have a surprise project. This video will be a little longer than usual, so buckle up and let's get started. In our image slider container, let's add more images to display. At this point, our slider has some issues. That's because we haven't assigned what to do with the extra elements yet. How would you proceed? I bet you'd say, write a lot of else-if statements and check for conditions. That might work, but what if we have 100 images? That's where loops become helpful. We can avoid writing repeated lines of code by using a loop. Loops help us write fewer lines of code while automatically repeating instructions for us. There are different types of loops, but for now, we'll focus on the for loop. The logic of a for loop is simple. For every repetition, we start from a point. Check if it meets a requirement, and if so, move to the next point. The next point then becomes the new starting point, and this continues until the condition is no longer met. We write for, followed by parentheses. Inside, we initialize our starting point at 0 and define the number of repetitions. For example, if we want to repeat an action 3 times, we check if the actual start point, 0, is smaller than 3. If it is, we move to the next point, which is 1. But before moving, the code inside the block executes. To apply this to our image slider, we need to determine when to stop the loop. The stopping point will be the number of images we have. The condition checks if the starting point is smaller than this limit and executes the code. Our tracker is set to 0, and our condition will check if our starting point matches the tracker. If so, it will display the image at that position and hide the rest. Tricky, right? Don't worry. With time and practice, you'll master loops and see how useful they are in every project. Now, for the surprise, we will create a really basic game. Yes, you heard that right. This isn't a game development tutorial, and it's definitely not the best way to create a game. But we want to see how loops work in a fun way. The game will involve catching circles with a mouse click before they disappear. First, in HTML, let's create a div for the game and name it game. Inside, we'll add 2 more divs, one for game info and another for the game container. The game info will contain the title and score, while the game container will include the button, instructions, and the game itself. For styling, we'll keep it simple. Set the max width of the game div to match other elements for consistency. Make it flex, and you know the routine. Do the same for the game info, spacing out the title and score. Center everything inside the game container. Before jumping into JavaScript, let's design our circle. Inside the game container, we create a circle, but we'll delete it later. Make the position absolute and set the parent to relative so we can place circles anywhere we want. Set the height and width to 50 pixels. Give it a vibrant background color and apply border radius, 50% to make it a perfect circle. Now remove the circle div from the HTML and let JavaScript create the circles dynamically. In JavaScript, let's define some variables. The score counter, maximum score, maximum attempts, the game container, start button, message, and score display. Before writing code, let's understand the game logic. We'll start by creating circles and placing them randomly inside the game container using a function. When the game starts, we'll render the circles one by one using a loop, but with a delay so they don't appear and disappear at the same time. Lastly, we'll have a function to handle the end of the game. So let's begin by declaring the necessary elements, functions, and the first event for the start button. Inside the createCircle function, we create an HTML element using document.createElement and pass the div tag as a parameter. We assign it a class of circle so it gets styled with the CSS rules. Then we attach an event to it and append it to the game container. Now, let's call the createCircle function inside startGame so when we press the button, the game starts and call the createCircle to create a circle. Before that, we remove the message in the button. Use set timeout if a delay is needed. Our circle is in the center and works fine. Check the console log inside Developer Tools to confirm. Now, let's position the circle randomly inside the game container using JavaScript's built-in function, math.random. Math.random generates a number between 0 and 1. We multiply it by the width and height of our game container to get random positions, subtracting 50 pixels to keep the circle within bounds. We then apply these coordinates to the circle. Now, every time we start a new game, our circle should appear in random positions. Great. Next, let's make the circle disappear when clicked. Inside the event attached to the circle, we use circle.remove parentheses to remove the circle. Let's increase the score on every click and update the score display. And that's the create function is all about. Now, let's move to the start game function and implement the loop. We reset the score to 0 at the beginning of each game. Inside the loop, we want players to have multiple chances in case they miss some circles. That's why we set a maximum attempt limit. If the max score is reached, we stop rendering more circles. After max score, there is no point in rendering more circle, right? Let's start the loop. We set I is equal to 0 as the starting point. Check if I is smaller than max attempts, and create circles accordingly. Now, circles should render, but why are they all appearing at the same time? To render circles one by one, we delay each creation using setTimeout. We set a half-second delay for each circle. One important thing, we must increase the delay time for each iteration. If we don't, all circles will appear at once, again, after the delay. Since I increases with each iteration, we can use it to modify the delay time. I hope this explanation is clear. Feel free to ask if you have any questions. Now, let's make circles disappear after 1 second. Back inside Create Circle, add another setTimeout to remove them. Also, inside the loop and start game, check if the max score is reached. If so, stop creating new circles. To break the loop when the condition is met, we use return inside the conditional statement. Now, let's display a message based on the player's score when the game ends. To show the message after the last attempt, add one to the max attempts condition. And there you go. A fun game illustrating how loops work in combination with conditional statements. I hope it was easy to follow. If you have any doubts or any questions, don't hesitate to ask. In the next and final video of this Web Development Basics series, we'll refine our game using setInterval, which combines looping with setTimeout. We'll also move this game inside the course section of our menu so that other pages work as well. For now, stay safe and keep learning.